Dr. Aurelia Whitmore, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you. Let's talk about, what we need to know about your earliest context
Yeah,
to know who you are today.
yeah, absolutely. So I am Dr. Rolia Whitmore. The doctor is for a PhD. I have a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology. I graduated from Florida A&M University, College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. Prior to obtaining my PhD, I had went to school for a of science in biology. And I achieved that also from an HBCU at Southern University at New Orleans. So I'm a two-time HBCU graduate, product of HBCUs.
Yes, and for our international listeners, HBCU is simply historically black college or university. And so, yes, proud product of that. Dr. Rel is what I usually find that she calls herself on social media. So,
Yes.
Dr. Rel, thank you for sharing that. You currently work in business development and sales within the biotech
Yes.
industry. Was that
Yes.
something you always wanted to do?
I didn't even know a career like this existed. So, no. So, when I finished my PhD program, or towards, let's not say when I finished it, because we really don't know when we're going to finish.
That's
But
right.
around the time I've published my papers, I'm about ready to get out the door. I'm fighting with my PI. All right, it's time for me to
Gotta go.
go. It was a push and pull. So, what I decided to do, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go start applying for jobs. And so, I started that process. And when I started that process, I learned about a postdoctorate opportunity. So I'm kind of walking through the process with you of how I got into
Yeah,
learning
please do
about
that.
biotech. So finishing up my PhD, so obviously graduating from the College of Pharmacy, I pretty much tried to use that to my advantage. I'm not a pharmacist. Sometimes people do get that confused. A pharmacist has a PharmD. A PhD in pharmacology is a PhD. So they're very different. While the colleges can be jointly connected through an institution, the actual degree itself and what you're allowed or not allowed to do is heavily connected with your degree. And so, graduating from a college of pharmacy, pharmacists every year do this event called mid-year. So I was applying for industry roles, not getting any industry roles. Even in during my PhD program, I applied for internships in pharmaceutical companies. I didn't get those internships. And so I'm trying so hard to tap into industry because I knew I wanted to be a high earner. I knew I wanted to have job security. I knew coming into finishing my degree as a pharmacologist, working for a pharmaceutical company would suit me well and would align with the work that I've already done. My PhD, I focused a lot on molecular biology, but with an oncology lens. And so my dissertation just focused on these tiny heat shock proteins and how they respond to certain chemotherapies and how that all results in cancer resistance for traditional chemotherapy. So, coming to the end of my PhD program, I'm ready to go. I'm tired of being in the lab. You can probably tell from my personality too. I'm pretty much extroverted. I love talking to people. I love, the ambient noise of the lab was kind of driving me crazy. I was ready for something new. And so I've already committed all of these years of school. I've already, published my papers. I've done all of this work. I've attended all of these conferences. I've gotten all of this grant funding to pursue my career, my PhD, and I'm ready for something different. And so I, um, I kind of sneak into mid-year, which again, it's a pharmacy. This is a pharmacy conference that they host every year where the hundreds of companies, hundreds of other organizations and institutions show up. They are either doing it in usually Orlando or Vegas. Every year this event happens and pharmacy schools from all across the country come and they have an opportunity to interview with these companies. So your top companies are there. Your Merck, your Bristol Myers Squibb, your Eli Lilly's, all of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies are at these events. And so I was like, if I could just get at this conference and network, I will meet somebody will hire me. I will get a job. I'm
I
getting
love
into
it.
industry. And that's what happened. So before you actually come, of course, just like any conference, you have to register. You know, some people sneak into conferences. I didn't sneak into this one. I did register. I did have to pay because to register and pay you. So how it works too, it's like a matching system. So if
Mhm.
I register, I get to upload my resume and companies get to see who I am. And so
Mhm.
there are companies, one company in particular, they host a visiting scientist postdoc every year. They're Eli Lilly. So Eli Lilly every year, I don't know if they still do it because it's been I've been removed now from my PhD for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Every year they would do a visiting scientist position. And so I had an alum who graduated from my college, College of Pharmacy, PhD track, Pharm Tox, who attended the visiting scientist fellowship. And so she still had some connections there. So I ended up getting in touch with them. They were like, if you can come to mid-year, we'll interview you at mid-year. It's in Orlando. I was based in Tallahassee, Florida, maybe like a 4.5 hour drive. If you could get to mid-year, we'll interview you, and you'll pretty much get, we'll take it from there, right? What I thought or what I heard was that, I'm going to get this job if I could get to mid-year. So I had to go through the protocol to get there to interview with them. So I did. I uploaded my resume. I paid to go to the conference, all of this good stuff. So I had other companies find my resume and request interviews with me. So one of those other companies it was a position at AbbVie where they partnered with the University, I think, of Southern California. So I would be like teaching, but also working in an industry role. And then there was another company based out of New York City. They're called Omnicom Health Group. And so Omnicom is actually one of the world's largest marketing companies. And so out of those three opportunities, I went to mid-year. I interviewed with all three companies. Unfortunately, I didn't get the role at Eli Lilly. Unfortunately, I didn't get the position with AbbVie. So I got pretty much hired on the spot that day from the marketing company, which was Omnicom Health Group. And so because I knew Eli Lilly, like we had this relationship going, we were back and forth in emails. I knew the team. I was kind of nervous on saying yes, although I wanted to say yes. It was such a crazy situation. Even at the time, me and my mom had a trip to Italy planned. It was just so much. And I ended up just, losing my mind because here I am in a situation where I'm trying so hard to get a job, and now I have these three opportunities. One of them I think I'm going to get because of my network. The other one I think I'm going to get just because they're trying to hire me like on the spot. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so much. I went from like no one wanting me to like now I'm the cool kid on the block.
Now you have too many opportunities. Yeah. That's a good place to be, though,
Oh
right?
my gosh, it was the best feeling ever because the worst feeling ever is just not knowing what's next for you, not knowing how you're going to take care of yourself, how you're going to create a path for yourself. So it was a lot happening during that time, and so
Yeah.
I ended up I tried to let some time go by before I fully committed to Omnicom. Once I heard back from Lily, no, and I heard back from the AbbVie and the USC partnership they had. I told Omnicom yes, and so the rest has been history. I moved to New York City. I defended my dissertation, so I got hired. I got the offer letter 6 months before graduating. So
Mhm.
took that offer letter and went to my PI, and I was like, "Hey, I
I
gotta
have a
go.
job.
I gotta get out of here." And
Yeah.
so, 6 months later, I moved to New York City, and while I didn't necessarily fall in love with New York, it was so good for my career. It was so
Yeah.
good for my career. And I worked at Omnicom, and so it was great. I worked in their medical affairs team, and I worked with a bunch of different pharmaceutical companies on a bunch of different projects. Even being here in France, I can remember being in that role where we would be on calls with Boehringer Ingelheim, pharmaceutical
Mhm.
company in here, working on their COPD drugs. I've worked on I created sales rep materials, which I'm in sales now, but I created sales rep materials for Novartis. Novartis had a drug the year that I worked there that came out to treat chronic myeloid leukemia. And it was one of their treatment free remission drugs, which was something pretty new at that time. Created some sales reps materials. I worked on another drug with Bioverativ for hemophilia. I think Bioverativ was acquired by another company, which is something that happens a lot in pharma and biotech, which is really cool. Maybe in another segment we could just talk about like what biotech and what pharma is, and
Right.
for people who just want to understand industry. But I think Bioverativ was acquired by another company, and I worked with hemophilia, and that one was pretty fun because in patients with hemophilia, sometimes they have like joint issues, and so the scientists, we would like create their presentations for, they were going to present at a conference, and we like created a conference booth where like we put this joint restrictor, and you had to like throw a ball and like kind of understand what it was like having that condition versus when you're on the medication, and it helps with the inflammation in your joints. So all things marketing we worked on, and it focused on hematology and oncology. So it was fun.
I love that your first experience
Yeah.
was really with, so it sounds like an agency because they were working with
Yes.
different companies. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
I love about agencies is that, because I started in medical communications at an agency, is
Yeah.
that you're not working with just one company or one product or one
Mm-hmm.
vertical. You're working, like you said, you worked on oncology
Yeah.
projects, you worked on hemophilia projects, so you
Yes.
end up working in several disease areas, and also like with different companies. You acquire so much knowledge in a short amount of
Mm.
time, and it ultimately makes you so versatile. So I mean, this is just like saying that if you have an opportunity with an agency, I think it's such a great idea. I also love the fact that you you were super proactive about your job search, right? I think
Yes.
sometimes when I've had people reach out to me, and I ask, they're like, "Oh my goodness, I've been on the job market for like 6 months." I'm like, "Okay, but what are you doing?" And they're like, "I've been applying online." And my thought process is, applying online is one part of it, but sometimes going to meet people in person is a whole other side to it. So for somebody that may say, okay, Dr. Rel, you paid to go to this conference. What if I don't have the money to pay to go to a conference? What would you say? What could they do?
Yeah, so I would say you could start off where I started off before I got to the point where I paid and I went to a conference. And I will say I did ask my college to fund me. My
Good.
college, I think the conference registration was 900. I think they gave me four. So I
Okay.
had to come up with
Well,
500.
go and ask, right? Go
Yes.
ask. Go ask.
The worst someone can tell you is no. If you're
No.
still in school and you're a part of a college, colleges get budgets. Go and ask if somehow, some way you could be funded to um, advance or participate, your career development. Now, sometimes universities see that as, okay, you can go present an abstract at a conference, or it has to be tied to that. Whereas in this case, that wasn't the case for me. So they did have to, I remember like it having to go through a few layers of approvals, and I had to show them the conference registration. And thankfully, the college knew about the conference because of the pharmacy students, but I was one of the first PhD students to even ask to try to participate in a
Right.
conference like this.
And
So,
that's also another lesson, right? Is like,
mhm,
and I was saying this the other day, if you don't pitch, you won't find out what you don't know, right?
right.
And so you pitch this conference like, okay, the
Hmm.
pharmacy students get to go to this conference. I'm a PhD
Yes.
student. I want to go to this conference. Can I
Yes.
get money for it? And
Hmm.
it had to go through different. I just love that part of it. You went and asked. So yes, go and ask.
Yes.
Every other Friday, I send out an email newsletter to about 3,000 PhDs and academics on tips, tools, and resources that you can use to build a career you love. And I'm inviting you to join us. You can go to theboldphd.com/careers list. Again, that's theboldphd.com/careers list. Let's get back into the episode.
Yes, that's one piece of advice. Go. the worst someone can tell you is no. And to be honest, I heard no so many times. I could show you the list of rejection letters over and over and over. So no was the worst thing. If
Mhm.
and yes was the best. There were only two options.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for that. So now now you've moved a few times to different companies, right?
Yes, I
Since
have.
since then.
Hmm.
Fast forward to today, or let's say,
Hmm.
actually, maybe let's talk about when you moved from Omnicom to your first company.
Yes.
What did, now you weren't working on multiple projects, right? You
Hmm.
were only working with a particular vertical. What did a
Hmm.
day in the life look like for you then? And what does a
Hmm.
day in the life look like for you now that you have more experience?
Oh, that's a great question. So I will say that I did make a career pivot. I was in medical affairs and I was in marketing, and I am now in biotech sales, which
Okay.
are different. I went from different industries to even different roles.
Wow.
So agency and marketing to sales and biotech. Um,
Was that hard?
and
Was it hard to make that shift?
it was not hard. It
Okay.
actually wasn't hard for me, and I can share a little bit
Yeah,
why it
please
wasn't.
do. Yeah,
I feel
please.
like in marketing you have to be creative. Like, we thought about the joint restrictor for the conference booth when we're building presentations for physicians, or we're highlighting clinical data, such as like for the product to Cigna for CML. You have to find a way to storytell and to share data where people can digest it and understand it. And, when we would create materials, we would always want to know who's the audience. For some of the work we did, it was sales reps. For some of the work we did, it was physicians that needed to present to their KOLs, or maybe a physician is presenting at a conference to maybe the parents of kids who have hemophilia to help them understand. So I think it really, you have to be creative, and you have to always know who is the person that's receiving and has to digest this information, and based off that you have to creatively present the information in a way where it can be received. And so I would say a day in the life in that role when I was in Omnicom looked like I had to go in office. So this is why I love sales, because I work remote. But I had to go in office every day. Every day in office. The cool thing about New York does summer Fridays. So on Fridays we got off at like noon or 1 every Friday during the summertime, because the sun sets, like there's a period in the Northeast where like the sun is just not out. So summertime, when the sun is out, they're like, leave, goodbye, go enjoy the sun, which was nice. But I went in the office every day. I had to be in between 8 and 9. It wasn't like a hard time. As long as I showed up, if I showed up after 9, my managers were like, what's going on? But anywhere between 8 and 9, maybe even 8 and 9:30, I came into the office. I would open my laptop. I worked in the office with with the other medical affair postdocs. There were three of us that were PhDs, and one was a pharmacist. One was a PharmD. We're still friends to this day, by the way. They're amazing ladies. But we shared an office together, and we all worked on different brands. We all worked on different products, different brands. So again, if I had to meet with the France team, sometimes I would be in the office a little late to take the calls so that we could meet with them. Sometimes I even worked a little late. In an agency, you have your medical affairs, you have your copywriters, you have your art team. At one point, I remember we were trying to show a drug binding to a receptor, and I met with the art team to help them explain like how it should be drawn. They would even do commercials. So sometimes we'd have outside third parties come into the office, redesign a space. Like, it just, the list goes on. Every day was something new, or at least every time I worked on a project, depending on what were the goals of that project. Once we're done that project, we're on to the next thing, and the next thing could require something different. So that was a day in a life in agency. A day in a life in my job now looks totally different from that. So I have much more flexibility. Um, And every sales I do, again, if you want to do another episode where we can talk about the different types of biotech sales, but
I would
every
love that.
yeah, absolutely. So every company is different. Obviously, company culture plays a role. So at my current role, I in the territory you cover. So usually in sales, you first of all you're required to have a certain type of experience, type of background that they're looking for, and then you are given a territory. So my territories have changed drastically over the years. Even in this company, I've been with this company, October will be 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first year in this company, my territory switched twice.
Mm-hmm.
I went from covering Georgia, which is where I live in Atlanta, Georgia. But I didn't even cover Atlanta, Georgia. I covered south of Atlanta. I covered Florida, and I covered South Carolina. When I first took on that role, I did cover a region west of Atlanta, and then like a few months into my role, they only gave me east of Atlanta, like far east, like Savannah, Georgia. And
Yeah.
so that was in 2023, October 2023. It is now May 2025, and I now cover none of those states. I only cover North Carolina, so RTP, which for those of you who don't know, that's Research Triangle Park, and I
Mm-hmm.
cover west of North Carolina. So from Charlotte all the way west to where it meets Tennessee. So that's my current territory. So as you can imagine, living in Atlanta, covering North Carolina, I'm required to travel. So sometimes I'll hop on a plane, sometimes I'll drive. If I drive, I just try to make an adventure of it, which I think is really cool about my job. I'll drive up to South Carolina, pop into Greenville, go into Charlotte, hang out in Charlotte. I have friends in Charlotte. Go to Raleigh. I have friends in Raleigh. So it's actually really, really fun. I end up building relationships with a lot of the scientists and a lot of the labs that I work with. So a day in a life looks like that. It looks like traveling. It's a travel day. It's either a travel day, or if I'm there and I'm settled, the next day after my travel day is actual work day. I'll try to pack my calendar with meetings. Those meetings and why I'm having meetings depends on the time of year it's in. If we're towards the end of the quarter, towards the end of the year, towards the end of the half of the fiscal year, we're trying to close business. So I'm meeting with customers, trying to understand their lab needs. A lot of times people think sales is just selling. Sales is very consulate. You're doing a lot of consulting. You're even talking about other vendors. You're talking about the entire workflow of the lab, the entire needs of the lab. And sometimes I'm even understanding their entire budget. And now I'm working with, okay, this is the budget. You have this other types of instrumentation that you need to get. You're trying to hire a new person. So there's so many levels of complexities that I am sitting with my clients or with my customers, and we're figuring it out together.
Right.
Sometimes you come to a lab and the lab is divided. A lot of these biotech companies are competitors. You have a group of scientists that prefer one vendor and a group of scientists that prefer another vendor. And so even in situations like that, they decide to go with me, and the software that they've been using has been all this other vendor. It's my job to make sure that they're comfortable and confident and they're happy with what they've purchased. So I may be traveling and I may be doing a lunch and learn, or I may be traveling and I may be traveling with our software, our informatics team, to do some demos or to help them understand the new software. There's a bunch of stuff. And again, I think if there is a similarity between marketing and sales, it's the creative side. So I'm always building new surveys, creating new tables. I'm always finding ways to creatively and effectively communicate to my customers what they need, why they need it, and make it digestible for them. That's like the takeaway.
Hey, did you know that I speak to and train groups at universities, colleges, and professional organizations on the topics I cover on this channel? I do. So if your group would like to bring me in virtually or in person to cover intentional career design, personal branding that builds your career, careers within scientific communications or biotech, go to theboldphd.com/speaking.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you really what you're in is not just like you said, not selling, but really customer relationship management. That's interesting,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
what
for
I
sure.
call it. So
For sure.
it's more than hey, buy my stuff. It's learning, it's conversing.
Hmm.
Do you think your personality as an extrovert helps you in sales?
For sure. It's so funny because I'm actually, I'm here with my I'm traveling right now on vacation with a girlfriend of mine's, and she asked me, she's like, "Are you always?" I feel like you're never afraid to talk to people. Like I feel like you're never afraid to stand in front of a crowd or stand in front of an audience and and just speak. And I think that being an extrovert has obviously I'm comfortable communicating with people, but I also think too, and just transparently speaking, being a black woman in STEM, being a minority,
Yeah.
is being a black woman in sales when the majority of sales professionals, especially in America, are white male. There are moments where I may feel inadequate or I may not feel like I know everything because I don't know everything. And I think this goes back to just making sure you're at a company that is that you feel you have the support. So the company that I'm at now, when I don't know something, I could teams one of our we call them our technical support specialists that travel with the sales team to like host our lunch and learns and do a lot of our hands-on. At another company, it may be called a field application scientist. So
Yeah.
again, just those terms that are kind of
Yeah.
intertwined or used
We'll definitely have
across
another
industry.
episode where we talk. We will definitely have another episode
Yes.
where we talk about all those terms. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And so at this company, we call it our technical support specialists, which are scientists. They're experts at this instrumentation. They've probably used some of this instrumentation their entire academic career or their entire work career, and now they want to transition to working for the actual vendor. And so these people know the instrument left, right, back, side, up, and down. And so we bring them on site, or they may know the software in and out. We bring them on site, or we work with them. And just going back to company culture, if I have a question, I don't have to be so formal and maybe send an email and I'm waiting for an email. I've been on site with customers and they're asking me a super technical question that I didn't even know our software could probably had a feature where it could do something, and they read something somewhere and I'm trying to help them figure it out. And instead of me, I'll just be like, give me a second to figure it out. Now Teams, Microsoft Teams, one of my technical support specialists, and they get right back to me. And so I think
that's amazing.
company culture, and it hasn't, I've worked at a number of companies and it hasn't been that way at every company. And so I think to like, choosing, and thankfully I'm at a place where I can choose. I think when you're just trying to get out there, you're just trying to get a job, it's almost like whatever you can take you can get. The bar is pretty low, right? It's like dating, like the standard, the bar probably set low.
About
But
here.
yes, but once you have a little experience, you're like, you know what? No, this is my standard is here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that even goes to interviewing. Once you get to that place, you know what questions to ask, where you can kind of get a little insight into the company culture. Do they train? What is the team like? What are the dynamics of the team? So once you kind of get your feet wet and you actually get out there and you start working, you can get a feel for what works for you, because what works for me may not work for you. It may not work best for the
Absolutely.
next person. And but once you get out there, you'll start learning who you are in corporate, what works for you in corporate, what types of friends or teammates do you gravitate and make in corporate, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you like and not like about your job?
So as much as I love traveling, I love the travel. Obviously I love sales because in sales you have a base salary and you have commission. If you make if you exceed 100% of your target. So in sales, I guess I could give a little snippet. You're given a goal, a territory. There's super intelligent finance people go with all of their Excel sheets and their Power BI and all of their softwares, and they look at a territory and they evaluate sales. And every year, those sales numbers change for a territory, or as I mentioned earlier, the territories may change. And so every year, I'm given a target. I have to meet that target to hit 100% of my goal. So when I'm hired, I'm given a base salary and I'm given a commission bonus structure salary. So base salary doesn't change. Um, for that year. Of course, you get promotions, you renegotiate things, but for the year, your base salary stays the same, and that's commission is going to depend on, am I going to hit 100%, if I hit 50%, or if I exceed 100% and I blow it out the park. And so I'm saying all that to say I like sales because I exceed my numbers. I can make a lot of money.
Yes. I love it.
I can make a lot of money, and it's great. Like, it's great to be able to have financial security. It's the reason why we all work. We are working so we can take care of ourselves, our families, and live the life that God has given us to live on this beautiful earth. That's why we work,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I love about my job, is the ability to be an extremely high earner. What I would say, the same thing I love about it, I also don't like, which is the travel. So I love traveling. Even I travel personally all the time. I travel for work all the time. I love food. I love meeting people and exploring new communities. I love being outdoors. Obviously, covering North Carolina is beautiful. I get to go on hikes. I get to go on walks. I have friends. I get to spend time with my friends, but sometimes I just get tired. So I get tired of traveling. And so I will say, though, again, company culture is important. If I have a busy week of traveling, I make sure my Fridays are light days. When I say light days, I'm working from home and I'm probably starting the work day at 10 and I'm ending it at 2. Or I have a few meetings on Fridays and I'm done. Or Monday is my day to catch up on life. I may not schedule a lot of meetings on Mondays, but instead schedule my doctor's appointments. Make sure at some point after the workday, just so I can be available during the day, I go sit in a spa, or I go to the gym, or I go and sit in a hot tub or something like that. So I've found the balance, and thankfully this job, I can do that. I can say I've traveled all week. I need to catch up this Friday. Like, I need a second.
Yeah.
And that's allowed.
Yeah. No, that's so good that you are. I love it because the other question I was going to ask you was, how do you feel frequent travel affects your relationships, right? So
Mm-hmm.
depending on who is listening to this, some people have families at home.
Yes.
Maybe it depends on where you are in life, to be honest. I remember
Yes.
back when I was considering a medical science liaison role, which also is another traveling role. I remember looking at my 4-year-old at the time and being like, I don't know if I can leave him. And
Yes.
traveling too much. And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
having him was like, I think maybe I can put this off. But for
Right.
somebody listening to this and they're like, oh, I don't know how I want to. I love everything Dr. Rell is saying, but maybe travel and my relationships. What would you? How does that
Yes.
impact you, and what would you say to that?
No, that's a great question. And I think it goes to the cons, for me at least, right? Again, every sales job is different. I have a colleague, she lives in Atlanta, she covers Atlanta. So for her, her sales territory is visiting her Georgia techs. We have a Boehringer Ingelheim near Athens, Georgia, visiting all of these, pharma accounts, university accounts, and then she comes home for the day. Some days she works from home, so that means she's home during the day. When she travels, she's traveling for our annual sales conference, or she's traveling for some training, or for something else, right? And she just finished her MBA, which the company fully funded, which is another perk of being in corporate if you decide to, pursue your, advance even your education beyond a PhD. I know people who have PhDs and they still went and got an MBA because sales and business development is so businessy that they want that extra accolade to the business side. And so I will say that it's not every sales position is like mine, where I'm covering large territories or I'm covering a territory that's required me to travel. And my job has offered to move me. So they have provided me with a moving package. I
Wow.
just don't know where I want to live. So I haven't I'm like, and I actually like Atlanta. So I may not even use it, or I need to decide where I want to live between Charlotte and Raleigh. Because if I move, then I'm coming home. I'm not on a flight every day. I'm driving. If I'm in Charlotte, Charlotte is 2 hours from Raleigh, so maybe some nights I'll get a hotel, or I mean it's 2 hours if I start the day at 6, have customer meetings from 9 to 2. I could be back home by 4.
Yeah.
So, and I have that flexibility to decide and determine how I want to manage my territory,
Yeah.
how I want to. So it's almost like I'm a mini CEO. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
mini CEO of this region, and my goal as CEO is to make this region grow, make them successful. That requires me working with a bunch of other teams, our software team, our field service engineers, our technical support specialists.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have to go to marketing if I'm hosting a local event and I need some supplies. So it's my job and my goal to make it work.
I think what I got from that was sales jobs are different, and you could still work
Yes.
in sales and really be in a place where you don't have to fly every week.
Hmm.
So thank you for sharing that. That was very, very helpful for somebody that wants to and start on this career path in 2025. What, maybe they're a PhD student, maybe they're a postdoc,
Hmm.
even maybe they're early career faculty, they want to do this, right? What
Hmm.
should they start doing now to be
Yes.
able to land a sales role?
I would say to start with, if you are a student, what instruments are in your laboratory right now? Instruments usually have a business card on the side, because you have to get crafty now. Sending a LinkedIn message used to work. I'm not saying it doesn't, but sending a LinkedIn message, sometimes you get the message read, sometimes you don't. But if you really want to find a way to get your foot in the door at a company, look at the instruments in your lab, see when the next service is due, connect with that service engineer, connect with the person or the people that are supporting the instruments on your campus, and try to find a way to get to speak to someone at the company. Because another tip too is, the best way to get a job is through a referral. And a lot of times, if you're internal at the company, like, you as an employee, I can send a referral link, and I'm going to send a referral link to someone that I think is qualified and is going to make me look good too, right? If I'm vouching, if I'm putting my stamp of approval to hire this person, I want they're qualified for the job, I can vouch for them, I want them to know their stuff too. So I would say, if you are in your lab, look at your lab, pay attention to the vendor names on the instrumentation in your lab. Start seeing if you can start building relationships with the people that are supporting your laboratory and making your laboratory successful. And then ask about careers, or do your own homework. Go on the company website. Once you pull that instrument company, go on, scroll all the way to the bottom until you see careers. Click on careers and see what types of jobs are available out there, would be applicable to you. And ask, because sometimes companies don't post positions until they need it now. So you want to not ask or be in connection with someone at that company, where you can kind of get a little bit of the in the know of what's
Inside,
going on to
inside
prepare.
knowledge, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
And also, calling back what you something you had said earlier, conferences, I feel like, are another really great way to do exactly what you're saying, right? Apart from,
Hmm.
like, if you're starting right now without going to a conference, I love what
Hmm.
Dr. Well said, like, look at the instruments in your lab. That's a tip that
Yes.
I wish I had practiced in grad school. Oh my word. And then the other one I wish I had practiced was, like, when you go to conferences, find people at the vendor booths and talk to them.
Hmm.
Because, I remember even
For
somebody gave
sure.
me a card. She was a field application scientist. She gave me her card, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna say to her. So I never pursued that. But anyway,
Yes.
that's all. But these are all great ways to get started. Start building relationships. This
Yeah.
has been such a great conversation. I also know you run an organization known as White Coat White Collar.
Yes.
White collar, white coat. Did I say it wrong?
White coat, white collar.
Okay, I see it. And we definitely can talk about that just
Mhm.
shortly. But how can people find you, reach you, talk to you?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn if you want to keep it professional. You can find me on LinkedIn at Aurelia Whitmore. That's Aurellia Whitmore, Whitmore. And if you want to keep up with my work travels and all of that good stuff and all of the personal travels and just living life as a corporate scientist, you can follow me on Instagram at Dr.Rel. So that's DOCTOR.RELL.
Yes, and I'll make sure to leave all these links to your Instagram and LinkedIn, as well as White Coat White Collar. Do you still run the podcast?
Yes. So we haven't aired additional podcasts, and I just want to say too, I so appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate you for asking me to be on this podcast. So in 2022, I started the White Coat White Collar podcast where I interviewed the STEM and healthcare professionals who had alternative career paths. So if you think of a pharmacist, we interview pharmacists that don't do traditional or what we call retail pharmacy. We interview physicians. Those are, our medical doctors that we go and see in the clinic. These are physicians that have now used their degrees differently, from nurses to pharmacists to physicians to bachelor's and master's in STEM. We interviewed a bunch of these STEM and healthcare professionals, and we talk about their career journeys and how they ended up at the companies that they are at, and just understanding what they're doing. So and the podcast is now transitioned into a consulting firm. So we do career development. We work with universities where we host career development events. We look at their curriculum and we redo their curriculum. We do partner management. So universities are trying to strengthen their relationships with corporate. We have programs that we have built and frameworks in place to help universities bridge that gap between corporate and even hospitals, where students can get more exposure to corporate life.
I love it, and so that's another part of it. Another aspect of you I wanted to mention. So for those of you that might be interested in that, check that out as well. Thank you so much, Dr.
Yeah.
Whitmore. This was such a great conversation.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate this.